Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Friday, the 28th of April, comes to you from Chicago. And we start by looking at currencies, then stock markets, commodities. We'll give commodities a good look today as we're in Chicago, and then last of all, we'll look at some US tech stocks. So the dollar index still bearish, just struggling to get off the floor here. 98.75. We've got this 97.70 target, so that's another 1% down for the dollar. So we just are seeing this bearishness continue. So for the moment, the dollar is still looking fairly bearish, and the euro is recovering again. We had a brief moment below the cloud. The key thing is we're just coming back to this 109.50 level. Can we break higher? That would be quite something if we can. But at the moment, the euro is looking good short term and medium term. And are we just about to see some move back above the cloud here in the long term? We need to get really above the 113 level, so that's the sort of level to watch. We've got quite fierce resistance, and we do still have these downside targets hanging over us. So by no means is the euro out of the woods long term, but it's looking better and better all the time. We see that the Japanese yen is weak against the dollar, strong dollar here, flat for the last couple of days, so not much change there. And sterling is going on to make new highs. We're at 129.40. That's quite a recovery, and we are seeing we had this target of 129.40 given back on the 7th of April at 125. So the interesting thing is the target's there and it's being played out. We've got a bigger upside target of 138, but we do still have these downside targets hanging over us, and the long-term targets are still there, bearish for the sterling. So it would be interesting to see if we see any reversal in the dollar's fortunes. And if we look at the euro, we see here that that's occurring as well. We've got sterling just that little bit stronger against the euro and against the Swiss franc as well, as high as 128.50. So really motoring ahead there too. And the Australian dollar 173. It was in the 150s at one stage, so a really spectacular recovery. That's mostly about Australian dollar weakness. Looking at the S&P 500, we see here that the markets really in the US just starting to move that little bit higher, struggling to break the 2400 level. We're just 12 points away from that, just struggling to break above there, but at the moment this is still a bullish chart on all three time frames, and the Nasdaq hit a record high at 6,000 on the composite index. We're at 5,500 on the 100 index, and we're seeing that just breaking to new highs this week as well. The Dow, just again like the S&P, just struggling to make new highs, but it's still a very bullish market. And the same with the Russell 2000. We've had a very strong trend over the last week or so in the short term, and we're breaking higher on that weekly chart. So we are just seeing the US broader market making new highs. The S&P 500 future is just up slightly this morning, and the Nasdaq E-mini is also up slightly, so we may see the US market move higher to close on a very strong week. The FTSE 100 just struggling really compared to the US market, just not managing to put in any strong gains there. Strong sterling having a bit of an effect on the UK's blue chip companies, while the mid caps continue to power ahead, and the FTSE 250 just looking amazing at the moment. The DAX has certainly broken last week on the French elections and over the week, but it's really just hold those gains all through the week. So European markets still looking pretty good, and the Nikkei just flat at the moment, but has risen quite strongly on a weaker yen. Hang Seng in Hong Kong is just also just moving higher, bullish on all three time frames. The Chinese market, Shanghai, just struggling to get back above the cloud, so short term looking bearish there. The Indian market looking strong on all three time frames, and the Australian market also looking strong on all three time frames, just needing to break higher. Still yet to break this 2015 high. Taking a look at commodities, we start with crude oil. Really has been selling away quite strongly here. It was touching $50.50 yesterday on Brent crude. $50 is the magic level. If we go lower than that, then that would be bad news for oil. And we are still in this downtrend, so quite significant there. And the same with WTI. We're seeing that below the cloud as well. US nat gas just holding the 320s level, been flat the last day or two after the jump on the 26th. So we are just seeing that holding on. Copper is holding on to its bullish position short term, but bearish medium term, so not looking great. Very mixed there. Heating oil, very similar picture to crude. Coffee looks dire. We are in the home of softs in Chicago here this morning, and the softs market really just falling away in a lot of places. Coffee looking terrible below the cloud on all three time frames. A further 1% downside there. If we look to cocoa, bearish here on all three time frames as well. Cotton is a standout, looking bullish on all three time frames. Soybeans, sugar, sorry, is looking weak. As is wheat is actually looking weak in the long and medium term, but short term just a little bit of a recovery there. And soybeans looking bearish on all three time frames. Corn also just into bearish territory there in the short term, and the long term chart's abysmal. Taking a look at gold. Gold is actually just coming off the bottom here, and it's quite interesting. We're still bearish on that short-term chart. The key thing is if we break below this 262 level that we saw the low this week, if we break below that level, we activate a new downside target of 1232. Now, there's quite a lot of gold bears around at the moment, but the interesting thing is the trend is still up here on the point and figure chart. We're hitting some resistance on these long and medium term charts, and that is having an effect. But the key thing is we get back above the cloud and we're back into bullish territory. And gold did go quite strongly this time last year, so the first half of the year tends to be quite bullish. Looking at silver, much the same. We've got to get back above the short-term cloud. There are downside targets here that are activated, so that's looking a little bit more bearish than gold. Taking a look at the 10-year government bonds in the US, the yield is sitting at 2.3%. We're bullish on the short term, but bearish on the medium term. We need to get back above that 2.5% level on the yield. Apple, looking at US tech, is bullish on all three time frames, really looking strong. Same with Google, really just breaking to new highs there. The weekly chart looking stellar. Amazon, much the same. It's a theme across all of these bellwether tech stocks. Facebook, I've got a holding in, hitting new highs at 147.70, just really marching up the hill with lots of upside targets. And Microsoft, another one that I should declare an interest in, also just jumping this week, breaking to new highs, and we've got an upside target of 10% if we can just break higher than the high level we've seen this week. So Microsoft looking pretty good as well. That's it for this week. Until next week, happy charting. Have a great weekend. See you then.